Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Scoutcast from Fantasy Football Scout. You may have noticed that I am in charge of the screens, hence why you saw a little bit of footage of just us three waiting for the loading screen to come on. But there you go. My name is Andy.
My name is Joe.
Oh, my name is Seb. I've already lost you there, so that's good.
Yeah, we're doing well, lads. We're doing well. So you may have noticed that it's going to be a little bit different tonight because I am hosting. Now, the reason is we thought that Joe just needed to take a bit of a back seat this week, and
Yeah.
where he just wanted to be kind of the submissive one for a little while, which is lovely.
Mm.
So that's the only reason, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've never been the aggressive one, so I'm going to be all passive. I'll be like my dog when he rolls over,
Yeah, it'd be
and,
lovely.
and
We'll give you a
people,
little belly rub every now and again tonight.
yeah, have a sniff, have a sniff.
Does that mean I
Yeah.
just sort of stand against the wall watching?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
the official reason is that I'm in between computers, and the tech I have at the moment is not up to the mighty task of three people. But Yeovil Internet and Andy to the rescue.
Exactly. So we're going to see how it goes tonight. So obviously, my like Joe's already said, my internet isn't the best. There is the man running on the wheel outside, hopefully powering my internet. So we'll see how far we get. But Joe, my new
Mm.
assistant, can you tell everybody what's coming up on the show tonight, please?
Okay. Indeed. We're going to have a quick recap of Game Week 29 so far, and there's a doubles announcement. Yes, more doubles. So we'll see how that fits into our planning. Blank Game Week 30 was going to lead the show, but it's taken a little bit of a backseat, but we will talk about that as well. Best players to go for, transfers, captains, etc. We'll also, I've carefully crafted in about 2 minutes, a Game Week 30 ideal free hits team, and I struggled towards the end because, as we'll discuss, there isn't really an ideal free hit team in Game Week 30 because most of the fixtures are really rubbish. We'll look at our community squads that we're managing, and some quickfire questions if Yeovil Internet holds up, and we'll canvas questions from the live chatters there.
And I won't lie, I did upgrade my internet last week, so fingers crossed we're doing okay. So let's have a little bit of a recap of Game Week 29 then. So for myself, I'm on 70 points. I took a -4. I brought in Kulusevski for Ramsey. I was going to bench Ramsey anyway, so although Ramsey scored, he would have been on my bench. So in some ways, it's better that I sold him. I took out Luca Dean for Rudiger, which obviously not for Rudiger, for Doherty, sorry. And then I also no, that was it. So fairly happy with that. Dean's obviously now injured, so actually, although Doherty only got 1 point, I feel like that's quite a good move moving forward. And Dean's, he's just been such a troll this year anyway. And Kulusevski obviously got the assist for Kane's penalty. So 70 points, back up to around about 36k at the moment. And obviously with 9 players, I think it is, left to play. So yeah, very happy at the moment for me. Now, if we go on to Joe, you were on 69 points this week and a lovely,
Yes.
healthy green arrow as well. Tell us about it.
Yes. So yeah, a 4-point hit, so 65 technically. So I got rid of my injured players and moved in some better players who aren't injured. So James and Bowen came out for Kulusevski and Robertson for a -4. So yeah, 65, 8 to go, bench points galore. But wouldn't have played the bench boost with so many single players. I'm going to use the bench boost in 33, which we'll talk about, or 36. So one of those two. So Kilman was a doubt going into this. Brozier was a doubt, and I benched him because of that doubt. So it just happens to be a week where Ramsey got 10 points, Kilman got 8 points, Dubravka got 2, but he's still got a match to go against Everton, who are rubbish, and Brozier got 1 point. So it's looking at 21. I mean, it's going to be somewhere between 20, 21 and 30 point bench. But as I said, I wouldn't have played it anyway. And the two pluses there is Ramsey's reminding us all that he's a viable option again, that he can score at any time, and Kilman's back. So it looks like he was genuinely being rested. He wasn't, dropped in disgrace. So yeah, although, I had bench points, but I've seen a lot on Twitter, a lot of bench points. So I'm not too bothered.
It's such a random chip as well, isn't it? Like you can play it one week and get 4 points, and the next week your bench gets 30 points. It really is the most random chip, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And Seb, if we have a look at yours as well, you are also on 69 points. I'm sure there's a joke there somewhere. Tell us about your
No,
week
not
and all
getting
the
it.
moves you made. No, it's too easy, isn't it?
I did manage to. I had about 7 on the bench, so that was nice, I suppose, for you, Joe. But I've got Dubravka in goal with his 2 points, Trent with 6, Robertson with 6, Tierney with 6, and Doherty with 1. Triple captain Salah with 27. Maybe some more to come, maybe not. When City drew last night, my first instinct was like, oh, Salah will definitely play now because that's an opportunity for Liverpool. But if City had won, I probably would have gone, oh, now Salah's definitely got to play because Liverpool got to keep up. So either way, I guess I think he's playing if he's fit.
Yeah.
Son with 2, Saka with 3, Rafinha with 5, Kulusevski with 5, Lacazette with 6, and then Brozier, Jimenez, Dean, and Foster on the bench. My transfers to get that team, I took a -8, which is why I'm behind you, because it was a 61, I guess, not a 69, which is less funny. I did James to Doherty, I did Kilman to Robertson, and I got rid of Coutinho and brought in Kulusevski, which meant I kept Rafinha as part of that decision-making process. I sort of, I guess, did different to Joe. I know you benched him, but Kilman, I was like, nah, he's probably been dropped. And, I only ever had one Wolves defender, which actually swapped from Semedo to Kilman, so that slot's not been great for me. But I figured he's dropped or they won't keep clean sheets. And, it's for 30 that I need that player. If I don't think he's going to be nailed, then I don't want them any longer. So I took an extra hit to do the Kilman to Robertson move, which might pay off. Probably not. Although what it did mean is that I'd been benched Brozier. I was always benching Jimenez and played Robertson. I would have benched Kilman. So if you want to twist that, it worked out. But I think I probably wasted a -4 there, realistically.
Yeah, it's possible. But as you said, these are players you would have benched anyway. So it's like with Andy taking, who did you take out? You took out Ramsey. But if you would have benched him anyway, I mean, it's the same thing. I've kept him. You ditched him. We're both the same. We both haven't got his 10 points.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I wanted Ramsey for the blank game week, but I love the fact Kulusevski had the double and he plays in the blank game week anyway. And there was no other midfielders I could get rid of. So in my head, it was like, right, get rid of Ramsey, bring Kulusevski in. The strikers are terrible this year anyway. So I've now got 5 in the middle that I want to play every week, for at least the next couple of weeks. And it kind of made a lot of sense to me. And Kulusevski at his price, I just couldn't ignore it. I just thought, with that double game week and playing in the blank, kind of made a lot of sense to me.
He's a gift, isn't he?
Really does. He shouldn't have been priced at 6 million, I don't think. He should have been, especially with the opportunities that Spurs could have to be a good team as well. I think he probably should have been around the 7.58 mark, really. But
yeah, is Lucas Moura up around there? Did they maybe just think rotation with Lucas Moura?
I think Lucas Moura was about 6.5 as well, wasn't he, at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, because Luis Diaz came in at Liverpool at like 8, which is, I mean, obviously Liverpool are better, but that's a more realistic price, and he could easily have just been benched. So yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. By the way, for all the people in the chat that are mentioning my microphone, this has been here from the very beginning of Scoutcast. So if you're only noticing it now, the only reasonable explanation as to why I've got it is because, as Seb said, I'm compensating. So, Seb, you are going to lead us into the next section, aren't you? Because you're going to talk about the double game week announcement and how we're going to plan moving forward.
Absolutely. So we had this earlier today, so everyone's still just trying to figure our way through it, but we can give you the facts and then have a little chat about it. So what we know at the moment is there are some confirmed fixtures. There are some fixtures that are likely, and in turn, there are some fixtures that are likely to be removed as well, some blanks. So we have a double in game week 31 for Burnley and Everton, but we can move on and ignore them. We then have doubles in game week 33. The confirmed teams that double there are Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, Man United, and Newcastle. We have likely doublers in that week of Arsenal and Southampton, but that does depend on FA Cup results, which maybe we can dive into a bit in a moment. We have possible doubles, but unlikely, because these are the teams that are likely to progress in the FA Cup, of Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City. And that then means that we have likely blanks for Villa, Leeds, and Wolves. So I guess the first thing to talk about there is what happens to make those likelies certains. And then maybe look at some players. And interesting as well, Villa, Leeds, Wolves there. We've all had players from those teams and they could well blank.
Yeah, I like it. And it's interesting you said that. You obviously grazed over there Burnley and Everton. Joe, game week 31, it's coming. We know Burnley and Everton have double game weeks coming up. We know they definitely have one in game week 31 now as well. If you're intent on getting Burnley and Everton players in, who would you be getting? Well, ignoring the fact that you might be completely ignoring them.
Well, okay, so I'll look at it this way. Even if you rate Burnley, it's not a double. because they play City in one of them. So what are the Burnley defence going to get against City? Well, historically, an absolute thumping. And what are the Burnley attackers going to get against City? Historically, bugger all. So they're basically playing Everton. So it's, do you want to invest in Burnley playing Everton? Well, I don't even know if I want to do that. Meanwhile, Everton, same issue really. They play Burnley. I'm not sure who's going to win that. And West Ham. They're just two tricky fixtures. So as Seb said, we can safely ignore them. In my free hit before, I got Beghorst, and I think if you're going to free hit, they're a good free hit side because you don't want them more than a week, if that. So yeah, no, I will. I have no interest in them.
Yeah, it's fun. I've got no interest. Like, I'm already looking at it, thinking it looks like one of those typical traps we've had in the double game weeks this year. But I am just, I'm looking at someone like Gordon, for instance, really cheap. It doesn't matter if he doesn't perform because you can keep him and you just have him on the bench moving forward. But obviously the other expensive players look like they're a bit more of a risk. But someone like Gordon, take your fancy at all?
I mean, Gordon's a live wire of a player, but I don't know really. I mean, what's going to happen is that an Everton player or a Burnley player are going to get a double-digit haul. Which one? And it'll be a complete fluke. It'll be, I don't know, Mason Holgate. I mean,
we had Thomas Partey doing well this weekend for Arsenal. That's the classic one that no one would ever pick. I think I agree. It's maybe one of those cases of don't sell if you've got them. If you've got a Nick Pope, don't sell yet, obviously, but probably don't prioritize bringing them in. I maybe agree that you could go to Gordon for like a budget bench option, or maybe there's some sort of forward hokey cokey with a Weghorst, and then moving on to the likes of, I don't know, who's sort of in that range as well. Like you've got obviously Everton as well, but DCL isn't there. I'm even struggling to think who I'd move them on to. So like a Richarlison's maybe there for you, but I don't know.
It's as soon as you start mentioning the names, isn't it? As soon as you start going Richarlison or, like I said, Mason Holgate, and you just start thinking, I just don't know whether I want any part in this, to be honest. And especially when you're thinking you're gonna, unless you are wildcarding, and even then you should be wildcarding with 5-6 game weeks in your head, not just game week 31, which it's not the best double, is it? Like I said, Burnley have Man City and Everton, and then Everton have West Ham and Burnley, and you just think, yeah, it's probably not for me. But Seb, obviously, no, carry on.
I was just going to say, with that sort of talking in mind, like the first thing that jumps out to me is you hold a transfer this week. I was originally planning, say, like a little bit of striker movement to save some money, and then maybe do, your Rafinha or Coutinho. Everyone seems to have one of them, if not both. I think there's a very obvious move to like a Leicester midfielder or something there. I think you miss Burnley, Everton, you save a transfer and you start looking for 33.
Yeah. Now, Seb, you touched on 33, and I think game week 33 is going to be the big one where I think a lot of people in the community are starting to think, is that a good week free hit? Because there's a lot of teams in there. The confirmed double game weeks already are Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, Man United, Newcastle. Straight away, I'm looking at that and thinking, I own none of those players at the moment. I think actually that's a lie. I own Sanchez, but I've got Ramsdale, so if they double, I'm not going to be playing him. And I own Mopé, who I might be selling anyway. It's starting to look to me like that could be a better game week to free hit than game week 36, which would be a bigger double, but it's players that we're likely going to be owning already. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the classic answer of it depends on your team, right? And we've just said how I don't want Burnley or Everton, but Burnley appear in there again. So maybe we could re-examine that and say, maybe a Burnley player's all right if they're getting 4 fixtures for the price of 2 in that period. But if you then say remove Burnley because you've made that case for yourself, I think is Man United's fixtures not the best either, off the top of my head.
It's not that they're the best. I think we've got quite tricky fixtures around it. And I think one of them's Norwich, isn't it? But we could be resting a lot of players against Norwich.
They play Norwich and then Liverpool.
Right. So I guess that's my... So like Joe was saying, I wonder if you're free hitting or something, of course you get the doubles. If you're like us and probably using transfers, you see 2 fixtures and you go, oh, sweet. But if one of those is Liverpool, and Man United aren't the Man United we've seen in the past, is that maybe just Norwich? Now, Norwich is still maybe a great fixture, but you maybe are just playing for a single fixture there as opposed to 2.
So, like my team Brighton, there we go. They're playing Tottenham and City if they get a double. They will get a double in 33. So, is that a double? Brighton against City, if you've got a Brighton defender, then it could be on minus points. especially, and then Harry Kane rocks up. So, yeah,
it's funny. I don't know why. I had it in my head. Free hit 36 made so much sense because it was great teams with good doubles and really good doubles as well. Because it looks like they're going to have quite weaker teams that might already be relegated by that point as well. But I'm just looking at those teams. I think it's Chelsea, Leicester, City, and you just think they're players that either a lot of people own by then, or you could get to okay. Whereas this week, the other big thing about this game week 33 is the blanks that could happen are Villa, Leeds, and Wolves, which is who everybody has piled into their team for these blank game weeks. And so if you still have three of these players in your team, then a free hit kind of looks quite good. Now, Joe, obviously I've mentioned it to Seb already, and he does have something to say, so I'll come back to him in a minute. But do you think you could swerve this game? Obviously, it's all team dependent, but do you think you could swerve this game week without a free hit and then use it in 36? Because we're kind of running out of weeks to use it, aren't we? If we do have one.
Yeah, I think if you've got week 2 left, don't bother with game week 30. It's absolute dross. Game week 31, don't even consider that with Burnley and Everton. But game week 33 and 36 are the potential games to be made. But as you said, game week 36, I think we all could be all right if we've all stocked up on Leicester and Chelsea by then. Liverpool could have a double, and it goes on like that. I mean, we look at the definite doubles, the confirmed doubles in 33 is Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, Manchester United, Newcastle. Of that lot, I would be looking to get a Leicester midfielder in, Barnes or Maddison, whichever is looking better. I think if you've got a space and you've got a blank player in game week 30 in the midfield and you've got the money to do that, just get Barnes in now.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, so for example, the player I would remove for Barnes is Rafinha. And so I want to play Rafinha, and we'll come to Rafinha, and I'm sure Seb might have some things to say about him. But I'm keeping him for game week 30, and I'll get rid of him when I need to get rid of him. And he's a lovely Barnes or Maddison shaped player in my team at the moment. That's the price point there. It's Arsenal and Southampton are likely, and that's where my team will prosper in 33 because I've got a couple of Arsenal. A lot of people have 3 Arsenal, but I've also got Shea Adams, who I think is the best Southampton attacker, and Brozier. And so Brozier gets a stay of execution. And Shea Adams could be a little gem for that time. It's very unlikely Chelsea, Liverpool, and City will double in 33. It's possible, but very unlikely.
Yeah, the fixtures to keep on your mind this weekend then are Southampton versus City, Middlesbrough versus Chelsea, and Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool. Obviously, we would expect City, Chelsea, and Liverpool respectively to win those. The big one maybe is City because that has the biggest knock-ons. Crucially, that would maybe mean Wolves blank. We would get a City single if this is Southampton. If City wins, we'd get a City single, Arsenal double, and Southampton double. If Southampton win, which is the unlikely scenario, we'd get a City double, which maybe would push people into doing things they weren't planning, and we'd get Wolves, Arsenal, and Southampton single. So the Arsenal Southampton being the likely double there, it's all based on this Southampton versus City match. It would also take out the Wolves players, which is interesting, which we expect to be likely. And I think you mentioned there about the Villa, Leeds, and Wolves players we've all got in our squads. I think the interesting thing there is, it looks like, maybe I should free hit this week because I've got a team full of them. But then unless you want them for the rest of the season, all you're doing is deferring getting rid of them for longer. Yeah. I would almost argue that if you've got, say you've got Luca Dean and Coutinho, Rafinha, and some Wolves defence, well, those are your transfers. You know what? You've got 3-4 transfers to make before 33. Yeah. And maybe you can take some hits. I'd get rid of those players, bring in doubles, and maybe you look good without the free hit in that case.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you say that then, Seb. When would you be looking to use the free hit then? Because there are a few little double game weeks that might be coming up. Everton have got to fit these in, and so do Leicester. But this looks a prime week to use it. That's the thing I'm thinking is that I think a lot of people are going to come up to this week, and like you said, I completely agree about those are the players you're going to be wanting to get rid of, which completely makes sense. But I'm just thinking about looking forward. When would you use that free hit if you still got it? Some people don't even have it, obviously, but if you still had it.
I mean, some people have 2 as well, and then maybe you are doing both these things, or doing the classic game week 38, which is always fun. I mean, again, it's that boring answer of it's team dependent, and what I guess you want to do maybe is try and use one of the planning tools, look ahead, and see, okay, if I free hit in this week, and therefore maybe take, say, a -8 or a -12 to build up for the other week, which one do I think is going to net me the likely highest points gain? So you're looking at the people who are going to double. Someone for me like City doubling. I have 0 City players. That is more urgent than, say, losing my Villa players or something. Of course, there's net differences there, but I would rather free hit in a week or transfers if I could, when I can get, say, Cancelo, De Bruyne, and Mahrez. The other advantage, of course, we have with things like planning for a City double is that I think Champions League is a few days before 36, and there's also FA Cup ties potentially that weekend, which could move fixtures. The FA Cup final, I think. So if you bring in, say, a Mahrez, we all love a bit of Mahrez. He didn't perform for us in the week we needed, and he's been good either side. But if you get Mahrez a few weeks ahead, you might get some good fixtures out of him. But then when it comes to 33, for all you know, he's the one rested or he's the one dropped. Like if I was going to get a City player, I'd probably love De Bruyne. I have a soft spot for him, but he's a good option as well. But if they play Champions League the week before or something, maybe I think he's going to get rested. A free hit gives me that freedom. And I also don't have to carry De Bruyne through other fixtures he could get rested for.
Yeah. And it's worth saying as well, obviously, that this title race looks like it's going to be going down quite close to the wire, which is brilliant for us as FPL managers, because it means the Man City players do keep, we can use them as options moving forward too.
That's a fair point.
I mentioned earlier about price points, which is something I mentioned quite a lot on these shows. But I think now is where they really, really come into their element. I mentioned Rafinha to a Leicester mid. So that's a good move. So I think I would urge people, listening or watching to look at their team and look at the players they've got, the prices they are, how much they got in the bank if they haven't got much. And then also look at the players they might want to get in based on either the confirmed or likely doubles that are coming up. So for Rafinha, who might blank to Barnes, who might double in 33, is absolutely a great move, and that's an example of that. So look at maybe your Wolves defenders. So your Wolves. So if say you've got a Kilman, a Sace, or whatever, look at defenders that you might want to bring in, and look at that. Maybe a Newcastle defender. So I've got Kilman, for example, and I look at the double in game week 33 for Newcastle. That's Leicester and Crystal Palace. That's a clean sheet, I think, and that could be an attacking return for someone like Cher or maybe Dan Burn even. So it's a cheaper defender there for one of those players. So who else is it? So you got Villa as well. So Coutinho, that's the same principle as Rafinha to a Leicester mid as well. And you've got all of these possibilities. And so we were talking about what happens if there is a City double. So basically that's Cancelo. I must get Cancelo in for that at all costs. Well, I've got, and I think a lot of people have got Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. I would just dispense with Robertson for Cancelo. Yeah. But if I haven't got Robertson and I've got some 5 million and 4 million, trying to get Cancelo in is really difficult. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I'm starting to think in that way. I'm thinking, who have I got and who could they become, and will it cost me any more? And if I'm getting for the similar price. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I think it's quite an important thing. It's less players, it's more the shape in your team.
Yeah, and Seb's already alluded to it as well, but using these planning tools that people have got online at the moment, they're so good for looking at how your team is going to look in future game weeks. And I can't remember what the one's called. Is it team.fpl, the one that I use a lot at the moment? Is that what it's called? I can't remember what it is now, but it's so good. And you can literally plan your team for the next couple of weeks. And it's helped me massively over the blank game weeks and double game weeks. I'm even moving away from the paper and pen.
Oh, you're going to become a serious threat in fantasy football if you do that. I've got some expected numbers to introduce you to. I think on that conversation of planning, though, I think there's an interesting thing to call out here, which is those fixtures on screen now obviously are ordered by game week 33 and all the doublers are at the top, but there is a team there who may not end up doubling because I think it means they have to lose to Middlesbrough, which is Chelsea. Even if you take away their double, I quite like their fixtures, and I think it might mean people who already own Kai Havertz maybe think about keeping him because other people aren't going to get him. And Reece James, who we all love and all would have if they had a double, I'm tempted to get him anyway in the next couple of weeks, assuming he's fit, of course. We don't know if he is right now, but I think the prognosis is good. I'll happily have him for a bunch of singles if I think he's going to start. And if he outscores, you mentioned not a great comparison, but like a Man United defender. If they've got Norwich and Liverpool, I'd rather have Reece James having a single, to be honest.
Yeah, do you know what? So I've got Rudiger, and I got him despite the fact he was blanking in game week 30 because I knew I wanted him moving forward. And Havertz is the one I'm looking at. I love the way he's playing at the moment. Yeah.
Just something I had a thought with, if you were free hitting in game week 33, looking for gains and upsides. Now, Ronaldo has reminded us all that he can get a double-digit haul. He plays Norwich and Liverpool, so he's got the big game player, and he's got Norwich, nice and easy for him. So you could, if you've got Harry Kane, for example, I mean, although Harry Kane plays Brighton that day, you could get more if you captain a double game week Ronaldo. Now that's a big risk. But also the reason I mention it on a free hit is because and Leicester, and then they have Liverpool, but then they finish off with Burnley and Norwich, and you'd want Kane back for that. So that's why I mention it as a free hit, and I wouldn't in any way advocate removing Kane if you're not going to get him back for free in game week 34.
The only thing about, I mean, I think on free hit, that's sensible. The only thing I'd wonder, not necessarily disagreeing, is that if Cavani's fit, and there's 3 days between those games, does Ronaldo play both of them? And even if he does, if Fernandes is back in the team, no, I don't know. Maybe Andy knows more than me, but it maybe isn't a coincidence that Ronaldo performed without Fernandes, and we've seen in the past Fernandes perform without Ronaldo.
I was literally talking to somebody about this today, saying that they don't seem to play well in the same team. And it's because they just don't suit each other, I don't think. Bruno slows things down and he's looking for those other players to bring in. Whereas actually, when Bruno wasn't playing, everything was just about getting the ball to Ronaldo. And that's exactly what he wants, because he didn't have to do anything up front. Everything was happening around him, whereas Bruno's slowing things down a bit, which is not what Ronaldo wants. And they don't play well together at the moment. And don't get me wrong, like they're world-class players. Obviously, they're going to have games where they do play well together, but they're not entwined with each other at the moment, and it's just not quite working. They're not in sync, and I completely agree. I wonder whether Ronaldo would have got that hat-trick against Spurs if Bruno was playing, which is a bold claim because obviously it's all theory, isn't it? But I do agree, and I think trying to pick those United players, Sancho would be high up on my list again.
Yes.
But
I mean, if you want to speculate, the long shot, great strike from Ronaldo, but who would have been in that position? Probably Fernandes was playing. Fernandes. So exactly. I mean, that's very speculative. But just to highlight one of the goals you said, does that occur if they're both in the same team?
Yeah. Right, let's move on to our next bit, which my assistant Joe is going to lead. And this is talking about the best blank game week 30 players based on their last 4 fixtures. Now, we've got our table up on the screen that you'll be able to see at home and on the well, you won't be able to see on the podcast, so I'll go through them for you quickly. So we've got Tony, who is top. His XGI is 4.34. Now, obviously, a lot of that is penalties, but he scored 5 goals in the last 2 game weeks, which is just ridiculous. Rafinha is second, 3.32 for his XGI in the last 4 game weeks. Then we've got Kane, Lacazette, and Son. Coutinho is up there as well, 2.09, followed by Reguilon, Harvey Barnes, Saka, and Martinelli. So you can already see that we're kind of looking at those mainly Spurs, Arsenal, and Villa players that seem to be top of the list there. But Joe, you're going to talk us through kind of what you believe is our best bets in terms of game week 30, aren't you?
Well, definitely. I mean, just before I do that, I've got some community questions in around this, which sort of hopefully we'll answer. So Chama said, considering I've used my bench boost and I had no intention to play 3 forwards for the remainder of the season, is it worth doing a -4 to get rid of Broja, who's not playing for Gelhardt? So a big downgrade there. Obviously, Gelhardt's not nailed on to start, but could be a useful player to have. And if you're not going to bench boost, you're nice and cheap, and you can bench him away. And so I do think that is a valid tactic if you haven't got a bench boost. So I've still got my bench boost. So I would prefer a striker who's more assured of minutes. But yeah, I personally think that's okay. Matt asks, what do we think is the most optimum forward line for the rest of the season in terms of points and prices? So look, the reason I've said that here is because lots of us are thinking of getting a striker in for this fixture. We don't like our strikers, so we might as well get one in who's playing. So Tony's top of the tree here, but then Brentford's fixtures just leap off a cliff. So I don't know if we want to sit with Tony in our teams. So I'm just looking at the fixtures now. Brentford So game week 31, then they get Chelsea, then they get West Ham. Watford, a better fixture, but then Tottenham and Manchester United. And that's not a run of fixtures I want Tony for. Nevertheless, I think he's a great option if you're free hitting this week, because he's just got that one match. And Leicester we spoke about it on the captaincy video with Tom. Leicester, out of all of the teams that are playing, have the worst defence. So Tony's the best in terms of stats, expected stats, and actually scoring and form. And he faces the worst defence this week. So that says to me he's a player to get in. He's even a differential captaincy option for this week. But I don't know if you would want Tony long term, and I personally wouldn't. So that's the decision to make. But yeah, Kane from this list here. I'm going to ask Seb about Rafinha here, because I got Rafinha in, and I think and most people think he could have got many more points and many more returns last time out. The stats here, not just the expected goal involvement over 3, but 13 chances created. In our list, we've got Saka with 11. He's the next, and then there's a bit of a drop off. Meanwhile, Rafinha's had 7 shots inside the box over his last 4. I mean, these are really great stats. These are the stats of a player I want to get in, but luckily I've already got him. Lots of people are thinking of getting rid of him. Seb, should people get rid of Rafinha now, do you think?
I mean, I will probably lose him in 31 or ahead of 31, I think it is, as planned for, say, like Leicester or something like that. Obviously, he plays in 30, so brilliant. If you were free hitting, as you said, along with Tony, you'd probably get him. If you had to hold him, there's no massive issues there. Like, we know he can turn those numbers. He's had one very poor match under Marsh, one very poor half. I mean, the whole team were obviously bad against Villa. His first half against Leicester wasn't great. Then we played a bit wider, and he was pretty decent in the second half. Had a chance he really should have scored, which is kind of the thing to focus on from an FPL point of view. Then this week, he started out on the left, although if you watch the highlights, everything came from the right. Again, showing how I do think he needs to isolate people, outright, get into that space as we've seen. I think he had about 2 XGI, so XG and XA from that match, and also had an assist ruled off for offside. Dan James scored, which Rafinha created, and that obviously won't be in any of the numbers and maybe not even the highlights. But the caveat is it's Norwich. Like, we've seen this before where, I mean, Coutinho against Leeds, right? I saw Coutinho, not Rafinha, because Rafinha had Norwich, despite Coutinho being brilliant against us. But then the argument is, well, it's Leeds. I think the same goes for Norwich. So I just want to caveat with that. And I guess a similar sort of line along with Tony, with just caveating what we're seeing here, is that he does take penalties, which is a valid thing to have. But he's got something like 7 goals in 5, but from an open play XG, so not with penalties, of like 1.8. Obviously, you take the penalties off that as well. He's a very, very good striker in real life. But I think for FPL, if you're not holding him this week, maybe leave him alone, because if you're relying on penalties and other people have got doubles or can do more in open play, I think you can maybe use your money better.
Okay,
I was just going to say, though, I do think it's interesting with Tony where everybody's saying about how he's been this year, and that's fair enough, but Christian Eriksen's making a difference in that team. He genuinely is. When the assist he got for Tony was nobody else could do that on the pitch in that game, and he's come back into this team, and obviously everybody was like, well, obviously he's been unwell. Is he going to be the same kind of player? And he's showing that he is. And if he can be that creativity behind Tony that he hasn't had all year, yes, he had it in the Championship, but obviously that was a bit different. But I do think there is a different factor that we've got to actually think about when we're thinking about bringing Tony in.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Obviously, it's only been a couple of games, so either side of this debate, we'll have to speculate a little bit. Tony does drop off a bit. It's why I like him in real life a lot as a striker, but for FPL, he does drop off. So I guess you also want maybe Eriksen to be pushing him further forward a bit. And Mbumo's still in the side, of course, doing that role. I wonder if those numbers, though, where he's got, 4 goals from open play XG of just under 2. You would obviously hope Eriksen was pushing up that open play XG by creating those chances. Scoring 4 from an expected 2 is nothing crazy, right? That happens very easily all the time. But I'd want to see the underlying numbers go up as well if I was confident in Eriksen improving his performances.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add with Rafinha on my goals imminent table, which did very well this last week with Ronaldo getting his lovely returns. Rafinha's top of that. in terms of the XGI delta, but he's had 2 big chances, missed 2 big chances. There's actually only 2 other players who play this week on the goals imminent table. A lot of them are City players, and that's Lacazette, who's had 13 shots inside the box and just 4 on target. So he's been more of the assist guy recently. And the other one is Harvey Barnes, who's crept on. 12 shots inside the box, 6 on target. He's had a big chance and he's missed a big chance. I think if you've got a Harvey Barnes shaped hole in your team, just what Seb was talking about with all those doubles coming up with Leicester, just get him in. I mean, he would be the absolute top priority player to get in. For me personally, I don't have a space. I would have to remove Rafinha now, and I don't think it's worth me doing this week. But
I would say on Barnes, obviously, I guess your alternative is Maddison or maybe a striker, but with Vardy injured and Iheanacho possibly better than Daka, but Daka preferred, we're not sure. Yeah. I would back Barnes, despite someone that at the beginning of the season was against Barnes when a lot of people had him, other people had him, and also usually as well, just for a normal season. I think he looks very, very good when he plays well by eye. But often he then disappears, and I think that's what the numbers reflect when you look at those, that actually his numbers are a lot lower than you expect to see. Maddison is often above him, and other players are often above him. But for this period coming up, for his price, for the fact that he can absolutely explode, I do think he's a good option. So I would happily pick him now, despite not normally wanting to pick him.
I had some other stats as well about attacking defenders. If those are in the mood to get a game week 30 defender in, there are just in terms of the in terms of expected goal involvement, last 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only 8 defenders that have got an expected goal involvement of 1 or more. And at the top of that is Reguilon. And then you've got Alexander-Arnold, Livramento, they don't play. Then Doherty. So he's looking at your Spurs guys. I don't think that's going to be a big surprise to people. There is one other player in that list, though, and that is Matty Cash, who has been... I would say now a legend. It's one of those I was there moments. If anyone had Matty Cash during the last double, they're going to tell their grandchildren.
There was no good reason to pick him over Dean. I don't have Dean. What are you talking about?
That is a total tell your grandchildren moment. Getting that massive haul. I mean, I'm practically telling the kids about getting an Essa Okutu haul from when he was at Spurs in a double game week, and he got edging up to nearly 30 points. Yeah, definitely. So yeah. I think they're players to get in if you're on a free hit, especially with Cash, because you don't think you want Villa long term with those doubles coming up.
Are there any Leicester defenders you would get?
No. Well, yes, but no. There's defenders I might get to fill a hole when they got a double, but do I ever think Leicester are going to keep a clean sheet? So if I was on a free hit, I would take a gamble on Pereira if he's fit. But I wouldn't want him long. I don't want a Leicester defender.
I don't even know if I can name a Leicester defender that's nailed at the moment, to be perfectly honest. I think Soyuncu's the safest bet in terms of definitely 100% going to play. Apart from that, I think you're struggling a little bit.
I've got one more thing to read out just before. Yep. I know Andy's going to unveil my hastily cobbled together game week 30 free hit team, and but before I don't really look at it's weird. I don't look at the FPL site. I don't look at the FPL statistics that everyone can see often, because we're doing these things and we want to reveal things that people perhaps don't know about underlying stats. But I just did this anyway. Just did top 10 point scorers. That simple. 4 mids, 4 defenders, 2 goalkeepers, absolutely no strikers. The highest forward in that list is 24th placed Ronaldo, and that therein lies the tale of this season. Your COVID, your doubles, everything like that. This season is the season where the striker finally dipped away and said goodbye to FPL, and it's been happening all the time. Your likes of Firmino coming in, your false nines, and we've had hardly any strikers worth getting. And then you wonder, well, some of the strikers they're actually listed as midfielders, and the upshot of it is that we don't want any of them. I've got Harry Kane. I've got 2 places. I've got Che Adams. I quite, but Che Adams is not the same as Robertson, who's the same price, who's better and going to get me more points. And this list shows it. So mids, defenders, goalkeepers even. They're the ones to invest in. I hate strikers, and I think many people do this season.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, before we move off this bit, then, I've got one question for Seb, one question for Joe. Very, very quick one for you, Seb. Some people might be looking at downgrading their strikers because, like Joe said, they're all awful. So if that is the case, someone like me, I got Mope. Can we look at moving to someone like Gelhardt because he's going to be cheap? We can hold him for the rest of the year, bench fodder on our bench, free up funds to go everywhere else, especially if we don't have a wild card. Is he potentially going to play in the blank game week so we can at least use him this week and then forget about him for the rest of the season?
If you're planning to bench boost in the future, probably not for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'd say yes. I was going to do it until we had this double game week announcement, and now I think I can use my transfers better elsewhere. I do think he'll get a look in. He's been used more by Marsh proportionally already. He scored at the weekend. The only thing to keep in mind about the weekend is that both Bamford and Rodrigo were subbed off, and Gelhardt didn't come on. He came on for Click in the 90th minute. So while I think Gelhardt could get a start if either Bamford or Rodrigo are out injured, and Rodrigo does have a knock apparently, it's worth noting he didn't actually come on for either of them.
Interesting. And Joe, last one. This blank game week, I'm looking at it. I was looking at it again today, and I think I mentioned it last week at some point. I feel like this blank game week could be a little bit of a trap for people if they use their transfer or take a hit to try and field 9-10 players.
Yeah.
Are you of the same impression that I am, where if you own Kane, if you own a few Arsenal, if you own a few Spurs that are in there as well, don't go overboard on this game week, is it? If you use your free transfer, fair enough, but maybe just roll it. Even if you've got 7 players, rolling and then attacking the weeks after that probably look like a better tactic, don't they?
I don't know if it's still on the screen, best, in terms of XGI.
It is,
yeah. So these are the guys you want, and chances are we've probably got a lot of them. You don't need all of them though. Kane, great captain, go for him. If you haven't got him, Son, great captain, and then Harvey Barnes, you could maybe get him in. But you've probably got an Arsenal defender. You've probably got Saka. You've probably got a lot of these players. And if you're looking at that list there and you think, I haven't got hardly any of these, then you should maybe make some moves. But it's all about quality, not quantity. And I'm going into this with 8, and I was going to probably reluctantly move Che Adams to Tony just to go for this week. But with those doubles announced and those possible doubles coming up, I don't really want to use a transfer on that. And so I'm just going to go into this with 8. I'm going to roll the transfer, and in game week 31 we'll know a bit more. We'll have more information. We know what's happening with the FA Cup by then, and then I can use 2, and then I'll probably take a hit and take 3 transfers, do like a tiny little mini wild card then,
mini.
and then my Villa is, I can wave them goodbye in a taxi if they pop. Sancho, dare I even say a Fred? I'm just looking at these types of players that cheap players, or that you for a double game week that could get you a good return. And I don't know, I'm speculating. These are the people watch this go, oh, Jay said get Fred in, and I didn't. It's more, I'm just looking at the different players, and I can make more of a move then, and get double game week players that are all right. But I don't want to be saddled with more Wolves. I don't want to be saddled with more Leeds.
No, exactly.
Villa, and I certainly don't want to be saddled with any Everton or Burnley.
Laugh about Fred, by the way. He has been very, very good the last couple of weeks. I'm going to say that now. He's been when he's used in the right way, he's actually quite an effective player.
My kind of guy. He's an unfashionable pick who's doing well.
Are you saying that a Brazilian midfielder that Man City wanted to sign and Man United signed is actually good at football?
Mad.
It's weird, isn't it, when he's not used as a defensive midfielder? Anyway, I do apologise. My internet's doing really well, but it did just conk out just for about a couple of seconds there. Anyway, so let's have a look at our ideal game week 30 free hit team. Now, we've done this. Joe's made it very quickly, but it doesn't matter because the most important thing is that we can just discuss it. So we're having a look at who we think are the best players to own in game week 30. We've discussed it quite a lot, so we're not going to dwell on this for too long, but it's good to just get a few discussion points in here. So first things first, I'll just go through it really quickly. I'll go through the keepers, and we'll talk about that, and then the defenders, midfielders, strikers. So in goal, we've got Sat and Ramsdale. By the way, I should say this team has 5 million in the bank, so you really don't need
that
the money
answers
this week.
I
that
struggled to
answers my
spend it.
first question. I was going to be like, why is it so expensive on the bench?
Yeah.
That's why.
5 million in the bank.
That's because all the players are rubbish this week,
Yeah,
apart from
you
Harry Kane.
you've got Ramsey as well, and you could make him Coutinho.
Well, as you can see, this is a 3-4-3, and what I hopefully will discuss, we could opt for a 3-5-2, in which case Ramsey would be Gelhardt, perhaps somewhere.
So you know those rubbish strikers, we can only go with 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. So we'll talk about that anyway. So what I'll do, so we've got goalkeeper, so Sart and Ramsdale. Now, in my opinion, it's Ramsdale is the option if you're going for one or the other. Yes, I love Sart this year. I've sung his praises all year, but literally Ramsdale sneezes and gets 3 bonus points. So for me, you look at even this week, he got 9 points, didn't he? So I'm looking at it and thinking, for me, it would be Ramsdale. I've had the choice of 2. Seb, Sar, Ramsdale, or another option. What's your options, mate?
Yeah, probably Ramsdale, and like you said, because we've got so much on the bench, then whatever. Maybe Kasper Schmeichel if you really had to.
Yeah, Joe.
Well, see, I mean, I just picked the 2 best goalkeepers, so I mean, I would play Ramsdale, and there was so much money in the bank. I thought, well, I'll get Sarr in on the bench. It doesn't matter. This is a free hit team, so.
Chat say the team isn't up on screen, so we may need to nudge that along.
Oh god, yeah. Sorry, that's me. Sorry, that's because I brought it up on the on the notes, so I'm looking at it. It's lovely.
For the podcast, this all went fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. So in defence, then we've got Matty Cash, Pereira, Cody, Mings, and Kilman. So we've got double Wolves, double Aston Villa, and we've got Leicester as well. Now, main thing I've noticed there is obviously we don't have any Spurs defenders. So we don't have Doherty and Reguilon, considering the fact they have the best numbers. But that is because we've got triple in attack. So that's why. But obviously, if you want to go with that Spurs defender, then I think Doherty and Reguilon are probably the best bets for you. Joe, I'll go to you first this time. Anything there that you would change? Obviously, I know you were the one that made this, but you may have made it quickly and looked at it now and think, oh, I changed that.
I can't see where there's going to be a clean sheet this week. There will be clean sheets, but I can't see where they are. They're very hard to predict. So I don't want to. I personally wouldn't want to go into this with more than 3 defenders. I think a Wolves one is you might get a clean sheet. I think obviously we've got Ramsdale there for Arsenal, and I put in the likes of Cash and Pereira, as Cash could get you attacking points. Pereira, he's your differential who could get you attacking points as well. So, and then Mings, I had so much money. Mings is on the bench, so it could be anyone. Just ignore Mings, could be anyone. So that's my rationale behind that. I think a Wolves defender, and then go for whoever's going to get attacking points. So yeah, you mentioned Doherty and Reguilon. If you didn't have 3 Spurs attackers, which I went for in this one, take one of them away. Boom, get Doherty in instead, or Reguilon.
One thing I will mention as well: if you are thinking that Arsenal are going to get a clean sheet, just having 1 defender will not gain you rank, because I think they're above 100% EO for Arsenal defence. So you're going to need the 2 to gain rank if they keep a clean sheet.
Or you're going to need those bonus points.
Yeah,
you're going to need those save points, because that's worth a defend. Ramsdale's worth 2 defenders.
I mean, Ramsdale is the one that most people will probably have, though. I'm guessing Tierney is the lower owned.
A Ramsdale in the hand is worth 2 Arsenal defenders in the defence.
There it is. Assistant, shush. Seb, Seb, is there anything you would change about this defence?
I mean, again, it's all much of a muchness. I possibly would drop the double Wolves. I know we won't get triple because Sarr will be benched. Just because I'm not as much of a fan of their defence as we've been all season. We've seen that with the numbers, right? And recently they let in a few more than we expect. Well, not than we expected, but then we anticipated, as we've seen them maybe regressing a bit. Doesn't mean they couldn't, but what I'd maybe do is have a Spurs defender, possibly Reguilon, because I think he's more nailed for sure if Sessegnon is out. That means I could have Raphinha in the middle. I know we'll get onto that in a second. Or you could bring in your double Arsenal defence there with a Tierney. And I think that's maybe a slightly better route than the double Wolves defence.
Nice. So then moving on to the midfield for this free hit in game week 30, we've got Saka, who we don't need to talk about him too much. I think he's absolutely amazing this year, and he's nailed on in most people's teams, let alone free hits. Then we got Ramsey, because we need to most probably bench somebody if we're going to play the 3-4-3, or if we're going to play 3-5-2, we'll talk about the opportunity to maybe get Coutinho in there as well. Then we got Son, Harvey Barnes, and Kulusevski as well. For me, I think the big talking points there, I know Seb's just touched on it briefly there, no Rafinha, no Coutinho, and maybe someone like Martinelli is also somebody that could be a bit of an option there. Seb, I'll go to you first this time. Do you like the midfield? What would you change if you had to change anything there?
Sure. I mean, again, I think the structure is good, which I know is something Joe aims for. If we've got 5 million in the bank, I would just do Ramsey to Coutinho, because why the goodness gracious not? I guess if you want the defence and Lacazette, and I guess I just recommended Tierney, so I'd have to drop one of Saka or Lacazette to do that. You can't have Martinelli as well. I probably wouldn't replace Saka with Martinelli, although he's looking great at the moment, so I wouldn't hate you for doing it. And then, the other one I shouted was Rafinha, but I think we covered that a moment ago.
Yeah. Just on that, by the way, if you had a choice between Saka and Martinelli, I'd be going Saka every time. Martinelli just seems to go on the periphery every now and again, whereas Saka is just so involved all the time. And
we just get subbed off at 70 minutes, so you're getting 20 minutes less player. And so he if he scores the 7 points or so, if Saka does, you're looking at bonus. You might even get an assist as well. So you could get, you could be edging for your 10 points plus. So I think Saka's the one to have.
Yeah. And Joe, anything you wanted to mention about the midfield?
No. I think Son, Saka, and Harvey Barnes on a free hit, absolutely essential picks to get. Kulusevski is whether you want to get Kulusevski or Reguilon or Doherty instead, and that frees up space for the likes of Rafinha if you want to gamble there, turning his XGI into actual GI, and upgrade Ramsey to Coutinho if you wanted to have 5 in the midfield there. But that's the reason Ramsey's there, is because he's going to go on the bench. But even though there's 5 million in the bank, so then Coutinho would go in the bench. I mean, it just
just keep Salah, just cause just in case.
And then looking at our striker options, we have got Lacazette, Kane, and Tony up top. Interesting, because obviously, like you said, this is more of a 3-4-3 at the moment. So if you were going for those 3 up top, I think they are the 3 best strikers you go for. Leicester's the other one. If we think either Daka or Iheanacho are likely to start, then obviously one of those could be tempting. But I think those are the 3 that are probably best going forward. Kane as well, probably most captable asset in that free hit team, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. He's my captain there. I don't think anyone else is close, apart from Son, maybe. But I was going to say the only move I would possibly make. So Leicester are playing midweek, aren't they, in Europe? So Daka or Iheanacho, probably Daka is going to play. If there was an injury to one of them, so it looked like it would be definitely one of Daka or Iheanacho would definitely start the next few, I would be very tempted to move one of my Southampton strikers on for that. Move Che Adams on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been thinking about it with Mopé. I would love to be able to move to Daka if I could, but I just don't think, unless we have an injury, like you said, that we're going to have any certainty who's playing, are we?
And for those who've got Jimenez in their team at the moment, they're not free hitting. They've already got Jimenez. Once again, like I was saying about Rafinha or Coutinho for a Leicester midfielder, Jimenez 7.5. Start thinking about who's got a double coming up around that price, and
apart from Burnley.
Apart from Burnley,
but
I was thinking about.
I'm gonna do Jimenez to Vegas.
I was thinking about my man Chris Wood in Newcastle, but also Daka or Iheanacho. One of them could end up being nailed. And remember, Iheanacho this time last year was absolutely amazing to own, and that could happen again. So just be aware of that. Or it might be a case of that you don't want any striker who's 7 million or so, or no Che Adams in his double or anything like that. In which case, move it down or move it up a bit. Get a Lacazette shaped hole in your team.
Yeah, do you know what? It's interesting. I think if I was on free hit, I think I'd be going 4-5-1. I think I'd be getting those wing backs in. Like you said, I think Pereira's fine. I think Cash, Pereira, if you fancy Pereira to play, Doherty, Tierney, and then playing 5 in the middle, and then just Kane up top, I think. Just because I just don't trust those strikers, really. And it's interesting. I mean, Seb, what do you think about the strikers on free hit? Because a lot of people do have strikers that are going to be on their bench because they don't have a fixture. And obviously they're looking at, do they downgrade a striker? And is it something you fancy?
I mean, I'd probably go Lacazette and Kane. I mean, this front three is fine too. And like you say, you could have all three and then decide who to play. I do like Lacazette a lot. He's probably up. I mean, I own him in my own team, but he's probably up there for Arsenal assets for me for this period. I guess the only other, you've mentioned Leicester. I agree there. Vardy's not fit, I don't believe, so you don't go there. The only other one that I would have been tempted by, but I'm not anymore, would maybe be Leeds with Bamford or Rodrigo. But I don't actually think we know, speaking now on Tuesday night, if either of them are fully fit. So I'd keep an eye on that. But if you want to be safe, this is here for you. Maybe you could grab some confirmation from Daka and Iheanacho which one plays in Europe. But also, I don't know how reliable that is. So yeah, I definitely look to play limited strikers, maybe just Lacazette and Kane.
I've been so interested in the Leicester forwards. I have asked, the two in the nose that I know of, and they have no idea. They have no idea who's going to start. And it's exactly what Seb said, is that Daka is more favoured, but maybe not as good as Iheanacho has been in the Prem, whereas Iheanacho is better, but just doesn't seem to be favoured by Rodgers at all. So usually if the diehard fans don't have a clue, that tells you a little something as well. Sometimes it doesn't tell you anything, but a lot of the time it does tell you stuff.
One thing I'd love to point out about this team, just before we move on, is just to confirm that 3-hit-30 is probably not the one unless you're in big trouble. We all own about 6 of these players, not even like their teammates, but we all own 6 probably of the ideal 3-hit team. That doesn't normally happen. We might own similar players, but half the team that someone could get that's perfect. If you then add to that if you 3-hit in say 33 or 36, you could not only have a closer to ideal team that other people won't have, but everyone might end up having 2 fixtures. I think it really shows that if you've got 7, even 6, if you've got, Spurs, Arsenal, whatever, you're probably fine this week. I don't have Kane, and that's the only thing that scares me.
It's the fact that a lot of them are playing against each other as well, isn't it? And it just caps your potential in a week. And you just think, if you were making a perfect 3-hit team, obviously you would just go with 3 or 4 teams, wouldn't you? And they wouldn't be playing each other. So I know exactly what you mean.
Well, also,
just laughing as well, because I know what you mean, but I love that you said, they all play against each other. What, opposed to the weeks where teams don't play against each other?
You know what I mean.
the thing that brings in it as well, it's the other way to play a free hit in a week like this is really risky, and that is where you're assessing what the results are going to be, where the clean sheets are going to be, and so you literally load not the opponents. So you load up on the play on who you think is going to win. So Leicester, Brentford, you just ignore Brentford. You go Leicester, Arsenal, Villa, just ignore Villa. West Ham, Tottenham. Okay, just say ignore West Ham, and so on, and Villa, Wolves in there. You just pick the ones that you're going to go for, that you think are going to win, whether that means ignoring a better player in say Tony, for example, and just completely focus on that. It's a really risky strategy. Another one is so if you think Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet, just go full on triple Arsenal defence.
Yeah, and it's what DFS players do, and obviously they're basically free hitting every week.
DFS, what, the sofa?
Yeah, DFS store. Yeah.
Unusual.
Right.
They hide something to hide behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps when you don't have.
Let's move on to our community team. So Alex's community team. By the way, chat, thank you very much for being in the chat tonight. I haven't mentioned you yet. Matthew Price, Ivan Skelly, Delia, Sam, Max Rick, G-Wiz. We've got Bernardo Santos, The Broken Machine, Seb W, I recognise that name. Rod Rev, all of you that are in the chat, thank you very much for spending your evening with us. We do appreciate it. So we should now have the community team up on the screen, which I think we do. Lovely stuff. And I think this team is pretty well set up. So we've got Ramsdale in goal. We've got Doherty, Kilman and White at the back. We've got Rafinha, Ramsey, Kulusevski and Saka. And then we got Brozier and Adams, who both have a blank game week. And then we got Kane captain with Dubravka, Rudiger, Salah and Trent on the bench. Now, this for me is where I'm looking at this and thinking we've got 9 players. There's no other strikers I would want moving forward because you've already got Brozier and Adams. I just think you roll this. I think you roll this and have 2 free transfers for the next game week.
Yeah, I was thinking if before the doubles were announced, Tony in for Adams, but No, I would, as you said, the having White and Ramsdale in there, so you've got doubled. So you are making a bit of a bet there that Villa aren't going to score, and therefore that's your gain for Ramsdale and White. But yeah, I mean, looking at Rudiger, Salah, Alexander-Arnold, Brozier, and Adams. I mean, who would you dump? I mean, Brozier maybe, but who for? So there is a bit of money in the bank. There's 3.2. So we could do Brozier to that Leicester player if they emerge.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you said, just roll
it just
this.
seems like you're making the move for the sake of making the move, isn't it? Just to try and get 10 players when, unless you are completely sure that player you're getting in, you think is going to do really well, it just seems like a week where you just say, yeah, 9 is fine, carry on. Seb, what do you think? Do you agree, or do you think you'd be making a move here?
I agree. I think this is a good example of what we're talking about a team being close enough anyway. And if you did, for example, do one of the Southampton strikers to Tony, in theory, needs to score you, let's say, 8 points this week for it to work out, because even if you're not taking a hit, you're using a transfer which would prevent a hit in the future to bring him in. And then unless you want to hold him for the rest of the season, you may be moving him on again, which again, -4 elsewhere.
The only move I would make, though, is Ramsey to Barnes, because Harvey Barnes is a player I think I want, and I'm using that transfer. So he's a player.
So yeah, I'd like it. I think we'll have a bit of a chat about that before we lock in, won't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Lovely. Right. So what we're going to do now is it's the Yeovil internet. Yeah, I know. I do apologise, guys. If you refresh, it'll be back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to ask for some community questions from you guys that are in the chat. So chuck your questions in. Joe and Seb will be answering them as quickly as possible and in as little words as possible. I don't mind, Joe. It's absolutely fine. I think I can do it. I'll give it a go anyway.
Hey.
What we'll do is go through our teams while those questions are going into the chat. So my team's first. This is my team. I've got Ramsdale in goal. I've got Trent and Robertson, who obviously have the blank. I've got Nori, who I'm hoping will play because he got rested this week. Doherty, and then I've got Saka, Martinelli, Salah, who obviously won't play, Rafinha and Kulusevski, and I've got Kane up top. So I have only got 8 at the moment. I could easily get 9 if I went Mopé to Tony or someone like that. But I don't want to get rid of a lot of these players. Mopé is the only one I probably want to get rid of. Brozier I want to keep moving forward because he's a cheap striker that plays. Rudiger, I haven't got it on. Yeah, I have got it on the screen. Rudiger is somebody that I want moving forward as well. I don't want to get rid of any of my Liverpool. So to be honest, I think I'd be going backwards if I were to make a move. So for me, I think I'll probably be captaining Kane, and I could do Brozier. I could do Mopé to a cheap striker if I wanted to, but that's literally it at the moment. So I'm quite happy. Whose have I got next? I have got Joe's next. So Joe, talk us through your team.
Yeah. Similar. We've got quite similar teams at the moment. Lots of people. So I've got 8s as well. Ramsdale, Kilman, and Ben Davis, who almost scored. By the way, there was a thing on my timeline saying Ben Davis' goal ruled out by VAR or offside or. Anyway, I've got 3-4-3. Well, 2-4-3, 2-4-1 with Saka, Ramsey, Rafinha, Kulusevski, and Kane as captain. I've also got Brozier and Adams who aren't playing, and on my bench Dubravka, Robertson, Salah, Alexander-Arnold not playing. None of them I want to get rid of. All the Liverpool lads, I think they go into Watford game week 31. I don't want to be removing them for that. I think the best thing I can do is save the transfer, possibly only make one game week 31, and then for these doubles, especially with 33 in mind, try and go into that with a few more transfers and do that sort of mini wildcard thing where you take a -4 but you're making 3 transfers. I quite like the idea. There's no one I want really, particularly apart from Harvey Barnes. There's no one I really want to remove to get him in. So, when in doubt, do now.
Yeah, fair enough. And Seb, looking at yours, talk us through your team and what you're looking at. You've got a lot less blanks than we have, I must say.
Excellent. Although Luca Dean, I think, is still in my team, and well, that's a problem. So I have no goalkeeper. A long time ago, I might have maybe spent some money on bringing one of them to Saar, but I think I said previously how I was happy to have no goalkeeper for this week to have those two going forward, who are Dubravka and Foster, I should say. I then have Tierney, Luka Dean, who might be injured, and Doherty at the back. I have Son, Saka, Rafinha, and Kulusevski in midfield. I will give the captaincy to Son because I don't have Kane. I have Lacazette and Jimenez. And then I have some non-playing players as well. So if I was going to do something, it was originally going to be Brozier to Gelhardt, because even if he doesn't play this week, which I think he has a good chance of, but we spoke about that earlier, I would be happy to save that million, give or take. But seeing as we've now got more news, I think the transfer is more viable to me. And then the only problem would be Luka Dean at the back. But again, unless he's definitely out, maybe even out for a period of time, am I better just saving that transfer and taking a non-playing player in that spot for a week?
Yeah. Because it does look like Luka Dean is out. There was a picture of him on Instagram, I think it was, where his leg was in a brace.
Oh dear. Was it actually a brace, or was it like,
I don't know what it
often
was.
see players and weird things, and all it is just like recovery stuff?
Yeah, it was like a supportive brace, wasn't it? I think.
Yes.
I can't.
It's
People were
the kind of
signing
thing,
his cast. Like,
people with two fit working legs don't wear that kind of thing, basically.
Speak for yourself, mate.
He might be, looking out, and it's a Villa player who's got a blank coming up in amongst all these other doubles. Would you be tempted to take a punt there, moving Luka Dean out maybe for a Leicester defender? Or
so, I mean, that's why I asked earlier, and you both said there are no Leicester defenders that appeal.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, but
yeah, I guess Amity's cheap and has been playing, so I could then I don't have a bench boost, so at some point I need to get cheap players on the bench. Luke Thomas maybe is. I know James Justin can play left back, but he's a right back, so Luke Thomas maybe is the option. But then are they actually going to score me? Because I don't just want them to outscore Luka Dean. I want them to outscore Luke Dean who might get 0 by 4. Because in my head, that transfer, even though it's free, is worth 4 points to me when I try and get 100 players for double game week 33 or something. So I'll definitely have a think about it. But Reece James is who I want for that spot. Yeah. But getting him now seems stupid. I might as well just wait.
And also, you're maxed out on Spurs and Arsenal, and
yes.
They're the only other defenders you would consider. So
yeah, if you didn't have them, that would be a smart move.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Right. Well, let's go back to our little home screen with all three of us and look at some questions. Now, I'm going to tell you now in the chat, I am ignoring all the wheels versus doors questions because I've had enough of that.
Because you can conclusively say that it is.
Stop it. Right. Well, we're going to see a lot of wheels turning now in your head. So Bernardo Santos says Adams to Gelhardt and Ramsey to Barnes for a -4, Joe. What do you think? Adams to Gelhardt and Ramsey to Barnes for a -4.
No,
Seb?
it doesn't.
Oh, same one.
Yeah, same one. Got to answer as few words as possible.
Yes, just to discourage you.
Yes.
I'm like,
Max Rick says, if not on the free hit and if fit and available, do you do Dean to Cresswell as an option? Because we haven't spoken about West Ham at all. And obviously they've got a fixture. So do you do Dean to Cresswell? Seb?
Getting fixtures? No, they don't have any more fixtures to come. No.
They don't, but the fixtures are quite nice for a couple of weeks. That's the only thing. Yeah. Joe?
No, it's the same thing. All the defenders I want aren't playing. Or I can't get because you maxed out on, Spurs and Arsenal.
Okay. So John L was just saying, Seb, it's following the double game week announcement, the Brozier Joffrey move is on hold.
Yeah,
why is it Joffrey? What's his first name?
It's Joe, right? If I've got that wrong, it's going to be very silly because I just called him Joffrey.
Then
it's his nickname. He's what he's called around the club. I think it's Marsh called him. Marsh called him that in a press conference.
Was it? I had to look it up. I had no idea why people were saying Joffrey. I thought it was another player that I wasn't considering. God, I'm literally just having to scroll past all of these wheels versus doors. Right, Sam says best 2 goalkeepers moving forward from game week 31 onwards. So if you got a wild card, which 2 goalkeepers would you be picking? Joe.
Oh, okay. Ramsdale. And take your pick. I personally have Dubravka, and they have a double coming up. But I think if you can, I don't know, maybe Schmeichel. Yeah. But I don't know, I'm a bit biased. Ramsdale, Dubravka, that's my pairing at the moment. I'm happy with that.
I like the Schmeichel shout. I do, genuinely. Seb, what about you?
Ramsdale and Dubravka.
Ooh. C Manley says, what do you think about Maddison, Seb?
Really like him in the past, but I think there's a risk with fitness at the moment. So Barnes.
Nice. And Joe?
Yeah, same. I'm just not sure with Madison at the moment.
Yeah. Lots of people saying Cresswell's injured, by the way. So well done on both saying, no, I wouldn't do Dina Cresswell. Lovely. And last one, Tom Hunt says, evening chaps, what do you reckon? Do I do Gallagher to Harvey Barnes? Do I do Gallagher to Harvey Barnes, Maddison, or Ramsey? That'll be the last one we do. Joe, what do you think?
Oh, Barnes. Barnes is a player you want to get in, I think, if he's fit. But I think he's a top target. And if you've got the space to get him in, yeah. I mean, I haven't, so I'm not, but get him in.
Yeah. Seb?
Can I say Madison just so there's clips of me saying both, so I can quote later when I'm right about one of them?
Brilliant. But lovely. Right. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for your questions. And thank you also for being with us tonight. We always appreciate it. We had about 350, I think we topped out at, until my internet dropped, and then we dropped down about 300. But thank you very much for joining us. And like I said, like Joe always says, and I haven't said it enough, please like the stream because it really helps us moving forward and helps people to find us as well. Boys, thank you very much for joining me tonight as well. Joe, I think you've done such a good job as my assistant tonight, and I'm happy for you to do it moving forward if you want to. That's absolutely fine.
We'll have to see.
I'm not happy doing all the slides and stuff, so we'll definitely go back to you doing the host as quickly as possible. But for everybody here, we have been Fantasy Football Scout and the Scoutcast. My name is Andy. Thank you very much.
My name is Seb. Thank you very much. I've stolen the system.
No, it's fine. And it's a goodbye from me too.
Cheers.